This story became known 6 years ago. The articles, the plot and the talk show told terrible details. In Almaty, sadistic mother Anna Ivanova cruelly abused her own daughter Diana for years, kept her locked up and brutally beat her. My tone does not contain any exaggeration. It fully corresponds to what you are about to see. Moreover, if they didn't know about it, then many adults guessed it. Neighbors, school, doctors, guardianship, and eventually even the police. And no one did anything. All these adults allowed the violence to continue for years. And only one person, Nadezhda, tried to save Diana and she succeeded. And then the hype in the media, the press, articles, news and so on. And then the hype subsided. How is Diana living now, 6 years later, in Nadezhda's family, in a new family for her, with a new mother? What does she think now about the circumstances of her life with her own mother? What does she think about her at all? Anna Ivanova received a prison sentence, those 6 years, whether for every year of abuse of Diana in her own family. The cruel methods of raising little Diana became known 8 years ago. However, then she suffered at the hands of her grandmother. She punched her head with a crutch. She lived locked up for more than 6 years, slept on the floor of the battery and was brought up in extremely harsh conditions. The girl also recalled those cruel beatings, after which she once even ended up in intensive care. Due to severe injuries, the girl cannot go to school yet. For many years, her own mother cruelly mocked her. Diana has already had several operations. It seems that the fear is already over, but the girl could not forgive the woman who gave birth to her. Diana, hi.
Hello.
Are you 18?
Yes.
Tell me, please, and what do you call the mother with whom you lived before and the mother with whom you live now?
To be honest, I don't call her anything anymore, and I immediately started calling Nadezhda Mom.
Mom, well, let's call Mom first, right? Which you don't name in any way. Somehow we need to call her in conversation. What's her name?
Anya.
Anya. Before Kyiv, what city did you live in?
In Almaty.
And in which house? Well, who lived with you?
My mother lived and my sisters lived.
Did she beat her sisters too?
No, she loved her sisters. I also loved the older one and the younger one.
Does it come from you, she didn't love? Do you know why?
No, I don't know. She was just saying how much I hate you. Can't stand you. Well, that's what she said and that's it.
At the last meeting, the mother, who is being tried for sadistic abuse of her own child, looked calm. She didn't cry or turn away from the cameras. The woman was found guilty on 3 counts at once. The court managed to prove that the mother bullied the child from childhood. Constant threats, hunger and being locked up are only a small part of what Diana has experienced. Nadia, is it true that the judge cried when the child's injuries were listed?
Yes, she was crying. She didn't believe it either. She asked to see her back. When we opened, Diana didn't have a living place. There are stab wounds right there. Stab wounds. There's this hammer here, the point there. There's this scar on every centimeter. The judge was crying.
The girl's head was smashed, her ear was torn off, her teeth were knocked out, and the joints of her arms and legs were broken. She will have long-term treatment.
We managed to put Mom away for 6 years.
Articles.
Here she was given now.
Why 6?
Well, because they asked because she has a small child in her care, that is, Sophia. And because Diana, when she was asked, stood up in the courtroom and asked, "Do you forgive Mom?" And she was sitting right next to me like this. She saw her mother. She's still afraid of her. She got up and said, "Yes, I forgive." And she came out and said, "I don't forgive her. I'm just afraid of her." And because of what Diana said like that, they shortened all the deadlines for her there as much as possible.
The face of a 14-year-old child is disfigured by scars, his nose is broken, his teeth are knocked out.
We even have a medical examiner saying, "Is this a child in an accident or something?" I say, "She's never been in an accident."
All this is the work of the girl's own mother. In general, telling the story of Diana, it is very difficult to restrain emotions. I can't believe that so many trials have already fallen to her lot. From the age of 1.5, She was brought up in a boarding school while her mother was in prison. The woman was convicted of drug distribution. I really wanted to see Anna Ivanova's face. Firstly, to understand how similar they are with Diana, and secondly, to see something in her features that will shed light on why she was capable of such cruelty. And I see a beautiful, very beautiful young woman, in whose face there seems to be nothing. Not a hint of what she's capable of. And when she was released, she took her daughter from the orphanage to get a room in the hostel. But after a few months, the baby was admitted to the intensive care unit. Her grandmother broke her head for the fact that the child did not master the alphabet well. What happened there?
At that moment, the grandmother took all the blame on herself.
What did she say?
She said she was doing homework with Diana. Diana does not understand what she is being told. And I drove her, and she says, I hit her twice with a crutch. But I have all the conclusions on injuries. There are not 2 times and not with a crutch. Everything was broken there. The child was also almost completely broken. Since this woman, she herself has spent her whole life in prison parcels. Grandmother, this is it. She's been in prison all her life. She took all the blame on herself. She says, it was me who hit. Well, closer to 8 or 9, when I was. At first, my grandmother started beating me, but the fact that I couldn't learn Russian, it's Kazakh. She hit me with a crutch and I'm in the hospital there. How many days she lay there? Then she still began to confess that it was Anya who came from work, received a salary, came cheerful, and Grandma complained to Diana that Diana did not understand her. And Anya began to teach her Russian like that, to educate her. She hit the wall several times with her head, threw it all over the room. These are grandmother's stories. That grandmother told me to my face herself. Diana, it turns out, was unconscious at home for 2 days, and when on the 3rd day she had convulsions, she was urgently taken to the hospital. An ambulance was called and she was taken away. Diana, she doesn't remember. Diana had a trepanation. That is, the case was severe, the internal hematoma was there. As a result, my grandmother was deported, and Diana was in the hospital. Then I will. I was already married, expecting my 2nd child. I came to Almaty. I found Anya herself.
Nadia, tell me, please, are you somehow related to Diana's family?
Well, it turns out that Anya, Diana's mother herself, gave birth to her first child from my brother. That is, Diana is my older sister, she is my niece. I came and started to find out from her, what's going on with you? Where's Diana? She's in the hospital. I couldn't go to the hospital because it was already an unacceptable day at that time. Diana was still after the operation. And I'm not saying what's next now. She says, well, what's next? Now she will be discharged. Her grandmother was already taken out at that time, deported to Russia. Well, that's it.
When her own mother received a prison sentence for drug distribution, Diana ended up in an orphanage where the pupils communicate in Kazakh. After being released, the woman returned her daughter, but no one understood her at home, and her grandmother beat her on the head with a crutch, demanding that the girl speak Russian. Grandmother, by the way, did not incur any responsibility. A Russian citizen just left for her homeland. Listen, how many people are living at your house now?
5.
And who is it? Who are these people?
Mom, brothers, and me. Venya, Sasha, me.
Besides a 3-year-old brother, are there any other brothers?
Yes, 2.
Tell me, please, how is your day going? What time do you get up and what do you do next?
I wake up at 10 o'clock in the morning, then I go to the kitchen, clean up, sweep, clean everything, sit down to eat. But then my brother and I go for a walk.
So, and then?
Then yes. Well, we'll take a little walk, then we'll come home again. We'll help Mom with something else there. We'll play at home, draw, there's something else like that.
But study. Teachers come home to you. And what are these items? Well, what do they teach you? What is it? Math?
Mathematics, Russian, Kazakh, and, in my opinion, history too. Diana, well done, starts to clean up. I start to cook breakfast. Here we have an agreement. I cook to eat. She helps me clean up, so to speak. She helps me with the younger one. She's doing it here. The fact is that it is easier for Diana to be friends with children much younger than herself. She is not friends with her elders. I do not know why. We still have a sister in Almaty. We went to visit her, met a friend. This is an acquaintance. She is a good friend of both Anya and ours. She told me these horrors to me by this Aliyah herself. Aliyah said that Anya already had a third child at that time. And Diana, she came out, says how she beat her, so she beats her. I say, why is she beating her? Just like that. And she says that she pulled out the child's hair to such an extent that there are big bald spots. So she dragged her by the hair every day. Due to the fact that people began to notice, you can't even hide your tail anymore. She shaved her bald head. When my grandmother moved to Moscow, my mother first began to look like a belt, not much, and with her hands, and then only when she was told that she could beat me with tools, she began to beat me with a hammer, a gas wrench, but whatever came to hand. The kitchen she broke for me turns out to be called with a key. And with my lips, my mother used to drink it with her fists. I was constantly bleeding. Mom came in the evening, and then she had a drink there. And she started swearing, I don't know why. And she started to break my arm.
You said you were prompted. Who told her that it was possible to beat a child with tools?
The neighbor across the street lived with us.
And how do you know that the neighbor suggested it to her?
Well, because after the neighbor, she comes constantly angry and starts hitting with tools.
Have you ever thought of fighting back?
It used to happen when Mom was sleeping. She wanted to either knock her or do something else. But I couldn't do it, because she locked me in the toilet. She said not to come out of there.
For how long? How long were you there?
For the whole night.
And how did you sleep there?
And I was forbidden to sleep there. Mom said, take a book, either I read or write. There, for example, 10 pages of write mathematics or Russian there.
Sitting on the toilet, or what?
No, she wouldn't even let me sit on it. We had a washing machine and I stood on it and wrote this.
And when did you sleep?
Literally when she was, well, in a good mood. Or when the younger sister was not at home.
And if you didn't write at night? Well, I just accidentally fell asleep. What happened in the morning?
She used to sometimes put her hands on the washing machine with a hammer like this and say, hold your hands like this, and I'm going to, well, knock on your hands so that she doesn't sleep anymore. And I really wanted to sleep.
And when your mother beat you, you probably cried, didn't you?
Yes, I cried. The neighbors heard, but when the neighbors came, Mom started hiding me quickly so that, well, no one knew about anything. Or I just covered my arms and legs. Well, I put on pants and a jacket so that bruises were not visible and that's it. Before the blood, yes, it was too, especially the face suffered very much. When the lips were bleeding like that, it was very scary. As I was flying around the apartment there, she beat my nose with a hammer, sometimes with her hands. On the face, the nose is broken, the lips, teeth are knocked out, the ear is broken. That's starting, yes, but my neighbors will knock on me, or they will call her. I could have been either tied up with duct tape or something else. She could have taken a hammer, started hitting me.
Tied where?
On a chair, Kadan. She was tied up in the toilet.
And what is tied?
Well, it was scotch. Hands tied like that, legs, mouth.
Was it often?
Very often. You could say every day.
Tied her hands and mouth.
Yes.